The words hit Marcus like a physical blow, echoing through the marble-floored hallway of Sterling Enterprises with cruel finality. "You're fired." Those two words, delivered coldly by Billionaire CEO Richard Sterling himself, should have broken him, should have sent him spiraling into despair. But what Marcus Williams said next, standing there in his worn shoes with paint stains still visible on his sleeve from his daughter's morning art project, would not only save his job but transform the heart of one of Manhattan's most ruthless businessmen forever. Marcus had been cleaning the executive offices of Sterling Enterprises for 3 years, working the night shift while his 5-year-old daughter Emma slept at his mother's apartment across town. Every night he arrived at 9 and worked until dawn, mopping floors, emptying trash bins and polishing the glass windows that overlooked the glittering New York skyline. The building's janitor wasn't supposed to be seen, wasn't supposed to exist in the same world as the executives who glided past him as if he were invisible. But Marcus never complained. This job, humble as it was, kept food on the table and allowed him to be present during Emma's waking hours, to walk her to kindergarten each morning, to be the only parent she had left after her mother abandoned them both when Emma was just 6 months old. Tonight was different, though. Tonight, Marcus had made a mistake that would change everything. He had been cleaning Richard Sterling's private office when he noticed a leather journal lying open on the massive Mahonian desk. The page displayed a child's drawing, crude and colorful, showing 2 stick figures holding hands beneath a crooked sun. Without thinking, Marcus had smiled and whispered to himself, "My Emma draws just like this." That's when he heard the sharp intake of breath behind him, and turned to find Richard Sterling standing in the doorway, his steel-gray eyes blazing with fury. "If you believe in the power of second chances, in the strength of a parent's love, and in the possibility that one moment can change everything, please hit that like button, leave a comment below, share this story, and subscribe to our channel. Because what happens next proves that miracles still exist in the most unexpected places." Richard Sterling was known throughout the business world as a man without mercy. At 42, he had built an empire through calculated decisions and an iron will that never bent for sentiment or compassion. He had fired executives for far less than what he perceived as Marcus's intrusion into his private space, into the most sacred corner of his guarded life. The journal, everyone in the company knew, was off limits. It contained the only remaining drawings from his son, Tyler, who had died in a car accident 5 years ago. Tyler had been 5 years old, the same age as Emma. "How dare you look at that?" Richard's voice was ice, sharp enough to cut. "How dare you even breathe near that desk? You're fired. Get out of my building. Now." The normal response would have been an apology, a plea for mercy, a desperate promise to never make such a mistake again. But Marcus, exhausted from years of carrying the weight of single parenthood, from nights without sleep and days without rest, from the constant fear that one misstep would send his carefully balanced life tumbling down, did something unexpected. He stood straighter, met Richard Sterling's eyes directly, and spoke from a place of raw, unfiltered truth. "I understand, sir," Marcus said quietly, his voice steady despite the trembling in his hands. "And I'm sorry for overstepping, but before I go I want you to know something. The drawing your son made? It's beautiful. It's the kind of drawing that shows a child who felt loved, who felt safe, who knew his father was his hero. I know because my daughter makes drawings like that for me. She makes them because even though we have nothing, even though I work nights and can barely afford her art supplies, she knows I would do anything for her, just like I'm sure you would have done anything for your son." The silence that followed was deafening. Richard Sterling's face had gone pale, his jaw clenched so tight Marcus could see the muscle twitching beneath his skin. For a moment, Marcus thought the billionaire might physically throw him out. But then something shifted in those gray eyes, something cracked in the armor that Richard had built around his heart since the day he lost Tyler. "What did you say your daughter's name was?" Richard's voice was barely a whisper now, all the ice melted into something raw, something human. "Emma. Emma Williams. She's 5 years old, sir, same age as—" Marcus trailed off, not needing to finish the sentence. Richard walked slowly to his desk, his expensive Italian shoes clicking against the hardwood floor. He picked up the journal with trembling hands and stared at Tyler's drawing, really looked at it for the first time in months. He had been avoiding it, unable to face the memories, the crushing weight of loss that threatened to suffocate him every time he remembered his son's laughter, his tiny hands, his endless questions about everything and nothing. "I haven't talked about him in 5 years," Richard said, his voice breaking. "Not really. Not about who he was, what he loved, how he used to wait by the window every evening for me to come home. I built this empire bigger and bigger, thinking if I just worked hard enough, achieved enough, the pain would go away. But it never does it? The absence just grows louder in the silence." Marcus felt his own eyes burning with tears. He thought of all the nights he held Emma after nightmares, all the times he reassured her that Daddy would never leave her, that she was his whole world. He thought of how easily he could lose her, how fragile life truly was, and how this broken man before him was living his worst nightmare. "No, sir, it doesn't go away," Marcus said gently. "But if I may say so, your son's memory deserves more than silence. He deserves to be remembered, talked about, celebrated. My Emma talks about her mother sometimes, even though she barely remembers her, and I never shut that down because Emma's questions and memories, painful as they are, keep her mother real for her. Maybe Tyler deserves the same." What happened next would become legendary in the halls of Sterling Enterprises. Richard Sterling, the man who never showed emotion, who fired people without a second thought, who ruled his empire with an iron fist, sat down heavily in his chair and wept. He wept for the son he had lost, for the 5 years he had spent running from grief instead of honoring it, for the walls he had built that kept everyone at arm's length, including the memory of the boy who had loved him unconditionally. Marcus stood there quietly, offering the only thing he could, his presence, his understanding, his own father's heart that recognized the devastating weight of loving a child more than life itself. When Richard finally looked up, his face was different, softer somehow, as if years of hardness had washed away in those tears. "Tell me about Emma," Richard said. "Please. I want to hear about her." So Marcus did. He talked about Emma's obsession with dinosaurs, her habit of naming every stuffed animal after different types of pasta, her dream of becoming an astronaut princess who would rule the moon. He talked about the struggle of raising her alone, the guilt he felt about working nights, the fear that he wasn't enough, would never be enough. And Richard listened, really listened, sharing his own stories of Tyler, laughing through tears at memories he had locked away for so long. As dawn broke over Manhattan, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Richard Sterling made a decision that would change both their lives. He didn't just give Marcus his job back, he promoted him to head of building operations, quadrupled his salary, and set up a college fund for Emma. But more than that, he asked Marcus if Emma might like to visit his office sometime, if maybe she could draw with him the way Tyler used to. Because Richard realized that honoring his son's memory didn't mean shutting out the world. It meant opening his heart to the kind of love and joy Tyler would have wanted him to experience. If this story has touched your heart, if you believe in the power of compassion and the healing that comes from unexpected connections, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and leave a comment telling us about a time when kindness changed your life. Please comment below. Love always wins if you believe in second chances and the transformative power of a father's love. In the months that followed, Emma and Richard became unlikely friends. She brought light back into his life, reminding him that joy and sorrow could coexist, that loving again didn't mean forgetting Tyler but honoring him by staying open to the beauty life still offered. Marcus watched his daughter give this broken billionaire a reason to smile again, and in return Richard gave Marcus and Emma opportunities he never dreamed possible, not through charity but through genuine connection and mutual healing. The night Richard Sterling said "you're fired" could have been the end of everything for Marcus Williams. Instead, it became the beginning of a friendship that proved what Marcus had said that night was true. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is speak from the heart, honor grief instead of running from it, and recognize that we're all just parents trying to love our children the best way we know how. In a world that often values power over compassion, Marcus showed that vulnerability is the greatest strength of all, and that sometimes being fired is just life's way of opening a door to something more beautiful than you ever imagined possible.